Now on Sportsday, full-on footy analysis with Daniel Hoyne. Thanks to Champion Data, the story behind the game.
Hoyney, welcome to you.
No, pleasure to be here, guys, as always.
Well, we're running short of time, so we'll get straight into it. Your overall observations.
Yeah, so on the back of, I heard your editorial either last night or the night before, Gerard, around Ross's list, and no one talking about the system. So I think that word system is getting used more and more within the industry, both from a coaching perspective, but also just in the media landscape as well. And sort of system could be anything. It could be are you a boundary team? Are you a corridor team? Are you a switching team? Are you a long down the line team? Are you a marking team? Whatever you might be, there's so many different methods that you can actually implement. But I think it all gets back to, at the end of the day, that you can't expose and show your system if the contest side of your game is poor and really poor. So everyone's talking at the moment, and we'll get into Freo as we go on, around Freo's lack of ball movement and their lack of dare from behind centre and their issues ahead of the ball and what have you. Well, it all gets back to the contest side of things. So if you can't win your fair share of contests, you're not going to be able to showcase your method and showcase your system as to the level that you want it to be. And this is probably the issue at the moment a little bit with Carlton. And again, we'll get into them as the show goes on, is that first half against St Kilda, they won their fair share of contests. They were plus 25 in that area of the game. But they weren't able to actually showcase what their offensive system actually is to be able to take full advantage of that. And if you look at the bottom four teams so far this year, just from a pure contest perspective, it's Freo, West Coast, Sydney, and GWS. So, from a GWS point of view at the moment, it's really hard early days to actually understand what they're trying to actually implement from a system perspective. And that's, as a result of getting beaten regularly in the contest. Myself and you, Gerard, have talked about the Swans and what they're actually trying to do. It's actually a little bit hard to actually work out their method and their system at the moment, given that they have been belted in contest in two of their six matches, and Freo, as we alluded to before. So I think if you can't win your fair share of contests, getting back to real basics, you're not going to be able to showcase what your actual method and system is.
It's staggering with the Swans, given that their DNA has been about contest for many, many years. And Freo, well, they've got one guy winning the majority of their ground balls, and the rest can't get near it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think I think with Collingwood yesterday on Anzac Day, and as you said before, Kane, with those numbers, it was pretty stark. But it has been the case with Collingwood throughout the year, that they get a hold of you on the scoreboard once they actually either break even or win the contested possession battle. If they don't, that's when they actually have been exposed going back the other way. So again, it's trying to keep things simple to start with and then be able to showcase what your actual game is.
Hoyney, what is it about their comebacks, Collingwood, and what do you have to do against them to make sure you're not on the end of what we saw yesterday?
I think, sort of sitting there and watching it yesterday, like it did for so many people, it made everyone just sort of, reconnect with what's happened over the last 12 months. But this might sound really simple and really basic, but kicking that first goal of the last quarter in games against Collingwood is enormous. So if you think back to yesterday, Essendon needed one goal to kill the game, kill the belief they couldn't get it. Carlton in that round 23 game last year had 3 or 4 opportunities at the start of last quarter to kick one goal and kill the game. You think of North Melbourne in round 17 last year, had the opportunities at the start of the last quarter to kick that one goal and kill the belief. You think of Melbourne in round 21 on that Friday night, had the opportunities early to kick that one goal to start the last quarter, kill the belief. None of them did it. Sydney in the prelim final had the opportunities early in the last quarter to kick that first goal and absolutely kill the game. Got fortunate to actually win the game by a point in the end. So I think the belief aspect in it is, for me, is the enormous factor about it. If you kill the game within that first 4 or 5 minutes of that last quarter, I'm interested to see whether or not Collingwood can actually keep going again. But in 10, I think it's something like, I think Kingy's going to go with it later on, I think it's something like 10 of their 13 quarters, their fourth quarters, where they've been trailing, they've kicked the first goal of the last quarter. So I know it sounds basic, but that belief in what they're actually doing can stem just from that first 5 minutes of the quarter.
Let's get through your 7 main talking points, and we'll stay with that club, Collingwood. Jordan De Goey's performance yesterday was enormous.
Yeah, it was, and I just wanted to touch on even a couple of different aspects, if we could. So, I've just been thinking about this for probably the last 12 months in what he's actually done from a footy sense, and his record in big matches is almost second to none in the competition now, and it just got me thinking whether or not he has actually become the best big game performer in the competition. So if you think, yes, Dacos got the medal yesterday, but we had him as the highest rated player on the ground, De Goey. You think of his semi-final last year, number one rated player on the ground. You think of his qualifying final last year, number one rated player on the ground. You think of the big game round 1 against Geelong this year, top 5 rated player on the ground. You think of Melbourne last year in round 21, 80-odd thousand there, 4th highest rated player on the ground. In those matches, so those are those big games, he's averaging 24 disposals, has kicked 9 goals in those 5 matches and been involved in 48 scores in those 5 matches. And I'm sitting there yesterday, and I'm not sure what you thought, Kane or Gerard, and 3/4 time, I think, who's actually going to win the medal? It's actually really hard to sort of come up with someone.
Well, particularly because Essendon were winning so comfortably on the scoreboard.
Yeah, correct. So like when De Goey's kicked 2 goals and been involved and had 20 plus disposals and been involved in 9 scores, and I thought he was the main reason as to why Collingwood actually went further behind at 3/4 time. So it's just got me thinking whether or not obviously Dusty's been probably the best big game performer the majority of us have seen for a long time, but whether or not Jordan De Goey has actually taken over the reins now.
Well, the coaches' votes have just landed. You'd be interested to know, Hoyney, and I'll go from the bottom. 1 to Kyle Langford, 1 to Mason Redmond, 5 to Darcy Moore. I better get my glasses right. 6 to Jordan De Goey, 7 to Steele Sidebottom, 10 to Nick Dacos, none to Jordan De Goey.
Jordan De Goey, none.
No, he got 6, Gerard.
Oh, did he? Oh,
yeah,
6 to Jordan De Goey.
Yep.
I told you I needed to get new glasses.
So I think he just needs a bit of recognition.
Hoyney. Yeah, no, and we got that from the coaches, but with his 6 votes, let's move on to Essendon. Out of that, what did you notice? I've said the last quarter needs to be reviewed pretty hard.
Yeah, that was an interesting take, Kane, and I think when you lose a quarter, how they did, that's a fair assessment. And I think just with that last quarter, just Collingwood's ability to apply a pressure rating of 211 in that last quarter, where the AFL average is 180 was extreme. But as you alluded to, Kane, in what you said, 27 kicks and 44 handballs in the last quarter was a strange makeup, and where you were just getting absolutely ambushed from behind centre to actually sort of try and just gain some territory and actually get some relief out of your back half. It just felt like that they actually succumbed and actually sort of invited that pressure a little bit more from a Collingwood perspective by having those 44 handballs and only 27 kicks. But yeah, we've talked a lot about Essendon so far, this year on this show, and they're doing a lot right. And the one area of their game that for us is just on watch, and it held up for 3 quarters yesterday. But just their inability to be able to stop the ball movement going from one end of the ground to the other. So we talked about this last week, that their ability to hold up in your defensive 50 is strong, but they're still allowing the teams to go coast to coast. And Collingwood were able to do that yesterday. So at 3/4 time yesterday, Collingwood only kicked 6 goals for the game, but half of them have come from ball movement going from one end of the ground to the other. So they didn't have a way, if you like, for Collingwood to be able to score any other way other than from ball movement. And it just gets me thinking that if you're inviting entries and you're inviting ball movement and what have you, and you're not been able to stop the opposition through the middle of the ground, it is holding up at the moment. But is it going to come to a stage where it's actually going to get too challenging for this defensive group to be able to hold up across the course of a 24-week season. We saw it sort of unlock a little bit in that last quarter, but it's still just a watch for me at the moment.
I'm interested in your handball numbers, and I'll be interested in your thoughts, Kane. But to me, the 2 metre handball or the 1 metre handball is such a disaster at times when there's so much pressure. You're basically just transferring pressure, and the same guys applying the pressure actually transfers the pressure to the receiver. You're not actually giving yourself any relief. You're not actually counter-attacking. You're actually almost, as you say, invite the pressure to come in, and eventually you turn it over.
Yeah, and that was a bit of the concern for me in that last quarter, and especially early on, where you probably knew that Collingwood were going to throw the absolute kitchen sink at you to start the last quarter. Obviously with a 5-goal margin, you're going to have to come pretty quickly, and we didn't see Essendon implement that high handball game throughout the first 3 quarters. So it was a bit of a surprise in that last quarter.
Yeah, it was just pressure. There was just a reaction to the pressure, and a 5 metre handball to somebody on the outside is much better than a 1 metre handball to somebody on the inside. Kane.
As we move on to Richmond, Hoyney, 16th after 6 games with 1 win. How loud are the alarm bells ringing?
Yeah, well, clearly pretty loud given their ladder position and win-loss record so far. But just wanted to touch on just their performance against Melbourne on Monday night, and I think you've got to start somewhere if you're Richmond, and I think they did that against Melbourne on Monday. So to be so strong in what they were able to do from a contest perspective, which is what Melbourne have built their game on for best part of 24 months now, that was a huge tick. So they were able to win contested possessions in general play by 23 against Melbourne, which was their best record in over 3 years. They were able to generate 61 entries against Melbourne, which was the most Melbourne has conceded in 4 years. They were able to win the ball back in their forward half 33 times, which was their most since round 1. They were able to have more shots at goal than what Melbourne did. And based on our expected scores, we had them winning by 9 points. So I think if they take that profile with them over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, I think you can expect that win-loss record to change. And I think the other thing that we can't underestimate, and this might sound really, really basic, is the role of the fixture and what the fixture actually plays within your season. So I use the example for Geelong. So Geelong are going, really poorly for the first 3.5 weeks of the season, and then they get Hawthorn and they get West Coast 2 weeks in a row. They were able to slowly just get a little bit of momentum, and then they get the big win against Sydney. You look at Richmond this week; they got Gold Coast down here, and then they got West Coast down here 2 weeks in a row. So that should be considered an opportunity for them to actually get back on the winners list. Should be considered an opportunity to get back to 3 wins and 4 losses, and build on this profile that they actually implemented against Melbourne on Monday night.
Sounds like it was an impressive profile despite the loss. As you said, the expected score had them in front. Carlton is next, Hoyney. I think a lot of people will be interested in your thoughts here.
Yeah, I think with Carlton, it's, for me, and we've spoken a little bit about this, is sort of what method are they trying to implement to actually throw something significant back at the opposition that's going to be some sort of threat. And I think when you're plus 25 contested possessions at halftime, and I get back to the start, if you're plus 25 possessions at halftime and you got a margin of 4 points, I think that there are some significant issues with what you're doing offensively to not take advantage of that contested possession dominance. And now we've seen this. We saw it last year against Collingwood in that round 23 game where they were plus 54 or plus 55 contested possessions, and they're only able to kick 10 goals, 11 goals from that. So that's the biggest area of concern for me. You look at a system and a strong system at the moment and what St Kilda are doing, and St Kilda just need an even opportunity from a contest point of view to actually really showcase what they're doing. They get close to breaking even in contested possession, St Kilda in the second half, and they're able to put a 5-goal gap on Carlton. So I think that's the 2 biggest issues for me at the moment, is what they're able to actually do from a contest, an offensive method point of view.
Are they overloaded in contest winners and underloaded in ball movers?
I think they have a lack of speed through that middle of the ground. So you think of Chera and Hewitt and Walsh, and Walsh and Cripps. So Walsh is obviously an elite runner. I'm not sure if he's the quickest runner of all time, but that's the biggest. That's the area of concern for me, trying to get that balance right.
Working through Hoyney's 7 observations from round 6, and we're up to number 5 of that, and it is St Kilda. Hoyney, they're flying the Saints on top of the ladder.
Yeah, so just wanted to celebrate actually what they're doing in terms of not only what they're doing this season, but in terms of what they're doing historically. It's actually so far this year they're putting together one of the best seasons we've actually seen defensively on record. So from a pure points against point of view, this is their third fewest points that they've conceded after round 6 in 60 years. The other 2 better occasions were, ironically, 1966, when they won the flag, and 2009, where they probably should have won the flag as well.
Geez, you got Saints fans salivating over that, Hoyney. 66 you're bringing up.
And I think, what's most impressive is that, so they're conceding 59 points a game. The next best defensive team, from a pure points against perspective, is 76. So that gap of 17 points is, if that keeps on going, that will be the 6th biggest gap in the history of the game between the first best defence and the second best defensive team in the competition. You move on to a ball movement perspective, and they're number 1 in terms of what they're doing from going from one end of the ground to the other, and then they're the second hardest team at going from one end of the ground to the other against. That combination there of being number 1 and number 2 has only happened 4 times before in the last 20 years. They're now the 5th team if it continues down that way.
Wasn't Geelong 1-1 last year?
Geelong, yeah. So Geelong were 1-1. So Geelong were 1-1 in terms of what they were doing from turning a possession into a score, and the opposition turning a possession into a score against. So I think what they're doing at the moment is just, it's not only just so strong in terms of what they're doing in 2023, but just from a from a holistic perspective in the history of the game, it's actually quite impressive.
Pretty exciting stuff for Saints fans. That says that you may think they can win the premiership, which would be a shock for everyone. Fremantle, go slow Freo, or slow-mo Freo, as Gerard sometimes refers to them as.
Yeah, so I mean, they've got issues, right across the ground at the moment, in terms of, what they're doing from a forward 50 perspective, what they're doing from a ball movement perspective. But as I said at the top of the show, clearly right now, their number 1 concern is what they're doing at ground level. And they're clearly the worst team in the competition at winning a contest at ground level. And I just want to have a look at a few players and sort of, really put it on a couple of players to actually improve in that area. So Caleb Sarong is the 6th best ground ball player in the competition this year. So he's flying, he's going well, but then that is it. They do not have another player to rank in the top 75 players in the competition at winning ground balls across the year. The biggest surprise to me is where Andrew Brayshaw actually sits on that list. He's 166th in the competition this year in terms of being able to win ground ball gets. His last 2 weeks, he's won 5 in total.
What does Sarong win?
Staggering.
How many did Sarong win in the last 2 weeks? I think he got 16 last week.
Sarong got 16 alone last week, and no one else for Freo had double figures. Whereas you had a look at the Bulldogs and their midfield last week, Bontempelli, Treloar, McRae, and Libba all had double figures. So what
would Brayshaw's average have been last year?
He was close to double figures per game last.
So he's right off.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
so
right
to only have 5 is staggering in 2 weeks. So what they do with this mix is interesting. What they do when Nat Fyfe comes back into this team is also going to be interesting. But if they don't fix this, as I said at the top of the show, if they don't fix this, they might be a little bit slower than what everyone likes, but that's the least of their worries, as opposed to actually getting back and actually winning ground ball level contests.
I think Justin Longmuir, said today that Nat Fyfe, he'd think about putting him back in the midfield on those numbers. You can understand why. So their opposition was the Western Bulldogs, who returned to their absolute best, I thought, on Friday night. What did you notice?
Yeah, just something a little bit different with the Dogs, and their midfield was absolutely dominant. I mean, the top 5 rated players on the ground were their centre bounce players of English, Libba, and Bont, McRae, and all those blokes as well. But we mentioned a couple of weeks ago about the Dogs and just wanting to see some sort of defensive improvement, and especially being able to restrict the opposition moving the ball from one end of the ground to the other. And sort of I'm really big on being able to find those high half forward flankers that are just role players that can run up and back and down the ground and help and assist in defending the opposition, but then be able to transition going back the other way. And that sort of was the question mark on the Dogs when they were thinking about having those 4 key forwards playing to start the year. But I was really interested to see them go heavily with Jones, McLean, and Anthony Scott on Friday night. And it looked like they actually balanced up that front half of the ground quite nicely. They've still got Lobb and Norton and Jamara playing there. They've got Caleb Daniel playing in that front half now. They've got McRae playing that high half forward role. But then to identify those 3 role players and be able to really restrict what Fremantle are able to do, but not just Fremantle. They've been able to do it against Port Adelaide the week before. They're able to do it against the Richmond 2 weeks beforehand as well. I think that's a really significant shift in what Luke Beveridge has been able to do.
Just on the Dogs, I'm not sure, a question without notice, but I looked at the player rankings and they have 4 players inside the top 10, including number 1 and number 2 in the comp. So this has been my criticism over Luke Beveridge. He's got all the pieces, but he hasn't been able to put it together. Now, it came together on Friday. So Bont's 1, English is 2, Libba is 5, and McRae is 10. Has that ever happened before, where 4 players from one club has been inside the top 10?
It has. I don't know if it's been 4, but we've seen Melbourne have gone Oliver and Petrarca in there, but we've also seen this happen before with the Dogs. So Libba's constantly been a highly rated player. McRae's been a highly rated player. Bontempelli's been a highly rated player, and so is English as well. So yeah, this is why I'm big on that Jones, McLean, and Scott role. They've got the stars there, as you said, Kane. They've got the assets, but you need more than the assets. You need the system and the role players to be able to complement those assets. And I think that was really noticeable on Friday night.
That was Hoyney's 7 observations as we move on to who didn't get the love that they deserved from the coaches in the coaches' votes. Hoyney, and you want to start with a player we just touched on.
Yeah, so I just want to start with Libba. So, as you said before, Kane, we've got him as a top 10 rated player in the competition this year. And, again, on the weekend, he was really influential. He was the 3rd highest rated player on the ground for us. Didn't get a coach's vote, but it was just a typical Libba game. 25 disposals, but 16 contested possessions. Clearly the number 1 pressure player on the ground again. And was able to actually impact the scoreboard and kick another goal, which is what he's been able to do quite well of late. So he's flying Libba this year.
I'm surprised he missed out. He looked like he was having one of his great games. Moving on, we got one of Kane's favourite players. Yeah,
we talked about this, Kane, a couple of weeks ago around some of the underrated players in the competition, and we threw up Dan Houston, and I know you did the game on Saturday, but I thought he was actually really, really influential, really clean in terms of what he was able to do. We had him as the 2nd highest rated player on the ground on the weekend. He did get the 1 coach's vote, but just what he's able to do, more so from a ball use perspective, was actually really
quite damaging with the
really
ball
noticeable
use. Yep.
For the season again. Yeah, and across the course of the season, we've got him as an above average general defender again this year. So he's not prolific in sort of what he does from averaging 25, 30 disposals, but he's really effective with ball in hand. And I think it's sort of, it stands out a little bit on the eye when you look at some of Port Adelaide's ball users behind centre who aren't as sure and aren't as, sort of solid ball in hand as what Dan Houston actually is.
We'll move on to Brad Close, who I reckon had a slow start to the season, but starting to improve, Hoyney.
Yeah, I think he sort of again, touching on the Bulldogs conversation and just the general conversation around those high half forwards, him and Graham Myers are so critical to what Geelong are able to actually do. From a system perspective, and I think he's sort of reflective a little bit in what Geelong have been able to, do over the last couple of weeks. His first 3 weeks was really quiet. His last 3 weeks, he's actually the 8th highest rated small forward in the competition. And, we only had Dangerfield and Cameron, higher rated on the ground than Brad Close on the weekend. So, he didn't get that coach's vote from that game. But his game from an assist point of view was there. From a pressure point of view, it was there. And he was able to actually cash in and kick those 2 goals as well. So he's been able to turn his season around a little bit as well.
And there's a Hawthorn player that's maximising the opportunities that he's got after some players left.
Yeah, I'm interested in sort of what you guys think about James Worpel as well. So again, we had him as the 2nd highest rated player on the ground on the weekend. Didn't get the coach's vote at all from either coach on Sunday, but I think what's been impressive with Worpel's game this year, and I think clearly the coaches have worked hard with him, is he's able to actually have greater impact from less disposals. So he only had the 21 disposals on the weekend, but 12 contested possessions, 8 clearances, the most of any player on the ground, 7 tackles as well, and was able to kick a goal. So I think it's what he's doing, outside of just absolutely winning those 30-35 disposals a game, and credit where credit's due. So far this year, he's rated as an above average midfielder this year. So, as you said, Kane, with Mitchell and O'Meara moving on, and then him getting a greater opportunity, he's actually taken it and has run with it so far this year.
Okay, and our final player on notice is Mitch Owens.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about this guy, just in a more a bigger picture sense.
Yep.
So we measure relative ratings, which is taking into account your performance based on your age and your position. So and how far above or below expectation you're actually performing based on that age and position. So if you're a 25-year-old midfielder and you're performing to expectation, you're at 0% relative rating.
Yep.
Mitch Owens this year is performing 127% above expectation for a 20-year-old key forward. And so just to put that into context, if that keeps going across the course of the season, we have never seen a number like that before.
Gee.
The best season we've seen by a key forward was Lance Franklin in 2012, when he performed 87% above expectation for a 25-year-old key forward. So again, to put that into context, everyone is raving about Nick Dacos this year, and fair enough too, absolutely. Nick Dacos is performing 170% above expectation for a 20-year-old general defender, but we have not seen a player other than Nick Dacos be 100% or more above expectation for their position this year. So he is flying, and for those that are doing the Rising Star Award, I know people just think it's a 2-horse race between Sheasel and Ashcroft, but this guy needs to get some serious recognition. We had him as the 2nd highest rated player again on the weekend in that Carlton game, but didn't get a vote.
So if you had to pick the Rising Star as of round 6, who would it be?
It'd be Mitch Owens.
There's a nice bit of a gem from Hoyney.
That is a gem.
Yeah, I mean, he's by far and away the number 1 contested possession winner in the competition outside of stoppage, not just for his position, in the competition.
Wow.
So this guy he's flying.
And
I may be sitting on that panel. So thank you for the advice, Hoyney. I'll take that into consideration.
Let's get to Hoyney's gem. Do you want Hoyney?
Yeah, so I just wanted to give Matt Rowell a little bit of love, just with this gem, if we can. So across the course of his career, he's winning 64% of his possessions in a contest, which is the 2nd highest percentage that we've ever seen by any midfielder over the last 23 years, if you'd like. So him and Clayton Oliver are the only players in the competition to be top 5 for both winning contested possessions, but then winning them at ground level as well. Mm-hmm. He's the number 1 pressure player in the competition, and he's the number 1 tackler in the competition. So, Yeah, I understand that he probably does need to develop a little bit more of an outside game as well, and probably be able to impact the scoreboard like he did to start his career and like he did as a kid. But I think at the moment we can't question the effort that he's actually been able to impose on the competition so far.
Okay, so a big tick there to Matt Rowell and your horror, the Hoyney's horror.
Yeah, so I think I heard you mention this on the coverage on Saturday, Kane, about Port Adelaide and their ruck. So if we just have a look at the last 18 months, they've had 7 players that have been able to spend at least 100 minutes in the ruck over that period of time, and they're 4 non-ruckmen in Dixon, Finlayson, Todd Marshall, and interestingly, Sam Powell-Pepper have all rated far higher than their genuine rucks.
Extraordinary.
In Scott Lysett, Teakle and Hayes. So I think whilst they did have that win on the weekend, there's no doubt I think that the ruck situation for Port Adelaide continues to be a bit of an issue in terms of what they're going to be able to do moving forward.
Okay, to your questions, I've got the first one here from Rowan from Armidale. He wants to know how often Fritz gets targeted by the Demons, and the implication is he doesn't get targeted enough.
So he's been targeted 19 times this year for Melbourne, which is the most of any player on their list. And their return that they actually get from Bailey Fritsch is up there with the best targets in the competition.
It's less than 4 a game, though. Is that enough?
Well, I think this is the interesting thing with Melbourne, and you can take it however you want to. It's such an even spread in terms of how often they're getting targeted to players. So Fritsch is 19, McDonald 17, Ben Brown 16, Van Ruin 14, Petty 13. So it's actually a really even spread, which I think is actually a good thing, but some others actually might not.
Clayton Oliver's ground ball average gets?
So Clayton Oliver this year is averaging, close to 12 ground ball gets a game, which is number 1 in the competition. He actually didn't have a ground ball until the 28th or 29th minute in the second quarter against Richmond on the weekend. So that was interesting.
And what about Jamie Oliver, a Pies fan? He wants to know whether his stats show a drop off in form, or is it just inaccuracy?
Jamie Elliott, I think.
Yep.
So his accuracy this year has actually taken a bit of a hit. So he's going at 26% accuracy this year. So our rating system judges you really harshly if you're inaccurate in front of goal, and as a result, his ratings this year have actually been quite poor as a result. But that's purely due to the accuracy that he's actually having in front of goal.
Just a couple of texters asking if we can repeat the name you were talking about, the second-year player. That was Mitch Owens, who is off the charts. I think you've got him as the 13th ranked player in the whole of the competition. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we've got him. Well, so he's playing as a genuine key forward this year as a result of their injuries, and by our rating system at the moment, only Jeremy Cameron is rating higher as a key forward than what Mitch Owens actually is. So, this guy is having a phenomenal season.
Outstanding, Hoyney, as always. Appreciate you stopping by.